It's time for another episode of Budget Bombs. Powerful commander cards for under $1 that are not going to stress out your wallet, and they're going to make for some good magic.
I'm Mia, and I love putting weird messages in Venmo.
I'm BZ, and I love the little gift factor that Venmo has. This isn't an ad, but I just like when you can open a gift. And we have a Patreon. If you'd like to send us a little gift, ooh, that segue, so smooth. You can donate to Patreon. You'll get to see some exclusive content that nobody else gets to see unless you're a patron, and it's going to work out for both of us.
If you want to save a little cash yourself, you could go to Cool Stuff Inc. and use the code
NERDS
at checkout for 5% off your entire order. That's saving real people dollars.
Real dollars. It's it's not a fake dollars. You're saving real money from your own wallet. Dragon Shield's got the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
And I'm thinking if you go buy their sleeves on their website, you're not paying any extra money, but you will be supporting the nerds at the same time if you use the links that we give you.
And getting some shields.
Get those shields, as they say.
There's also a Moxfield ad somewhere in this video because they're a great sponsor of this video. And you don't know where it's going to be. You can guess in the comments, but if you guess and say you got it right, you lied, and you're wrong.
Even we don't know where it's going to be. And happy birthday to everyone's birthday is today. So if you don't know, Budget Bombs is a very simple series. These cards are very, very good in Commander in budget decks, and they cost less than $1, so they're super affordable. And there's some newcomers here, some old favorites, and some cards you're going to be surprised by.
Yeah, starting it off, I am so excited to put this on Budget Bombs, is Swords to Plowshares at 80 cents. For 1 white, you can exile a target creature, and their controller gains life equal to the creature's power. Oh my god, I didn't ever think I'd see this on Budget Bombs, considering it's such a staple in the format.
It's been printed so many times, and all these pre-con reprints finally chipped it down. It might not even stay there, but currently under $1, as of recording, very, very powerful. It's really like one of the best removal spells, spot removal spells in Commander. So this is less of a, I need to sell you on how good Swords of Plowshares is, and more of a PSA that Swords of Plowshares can go in your budget decks.
Yeah. Pick it up immediately. I have it in every deck that can run white, basically. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. But I bet you can't guess this next one because people probably don't even know what it does. It's Creative Technique, and it's 91 cents. It's 4 in a red. It has Demonstrate, which means when you cast the spell, you can copy it, but you choose an opponent to also copy it. And the spell says, exile it from your top of your library until you hit a spell, and you cast it for free. So you're going to get that twice, and the opponent's going to get that once. This spell has impressed me. Honestly, it looks bad. Like, I'm not going to mince words here. This spell looks bad, but I think you can build your deck in ways, or decks are already built in the way to take advantage of this, and you can clearly see in your average mana value is like 4. Maybe this is the card for you.
Yeah, absolutely. This also works if your opponent, you know what's on top of their library. Like, ooh, maybe they tutor up a counter spell to the top of their library, and you go, okay, you can copy it too, and they just counter it. It's like, oh, okay, well, I can't use that.
Just a whiff, yeah. This card can do some serious work. I think knowing what my opponents are playing, seeing their commander, already gives me a good insight into who has the worst blanks in their deck, who's playing the most Elvish Mystics, Arcane Signets, things that I just don't care about. And I'm going to be flipping off 6 drops. Well, I'm not going to be flipping them off. I'm going to be flipping 6 drops or 5 drops and getting super mana worth on this card. Very good return on my mana.
Another great technique spell is the Replication Technique for 4 and a blue. It also has Demonstrate, but you can copy a permanent you control. So at worst, it's you copy 2 permanents that you control and your opponent copies like a land. If they have no board, you can just pick the person with no board, and that's amazing.
Yes, you can choose. You have full information of what the boards look like. You know the best copy of anyone's permanents, so you can decide that the person who has the least things, they're probably just going to get a land. They can have the copy, and if I want 2 lands, it's not even the worst, but I can choose a giant thing, a big artifact, a Thran Dynamo, whatever. Like, I'll just make a token of it and then utilize that token later. I think this is kind of sneaky good. It's 47 cents, and it's kind of like a blue Sky Shroud claim. If you just copy 2 lands, you spent 3, but you're ramped 2 in blue, and they're lands. Like, token lands don't lose any value because they're tokens. They're like almost 0 cards that will destroy a token land that won't destroy a non-token land.
I've actually seen this in his Brutaclad deck, and it's amazing. You'll just, something non-token, you'll make a token of it, and then, you just turn everything into that token. Did you do that with Staff of Nin?
Yeah, certain decks can take advantage of it a lot, but I think in budget blue, I'm pretty happy to just play this. maybe across the board. If you're a permanent based deck, I think you can just run this. It's the blue Sky Shroud claim, everybody. I've hyped it up.
Yeah, I really like the demonstrate mechanic in general, considering you can pick the opponent and just there are a few of the demonstrate spells that can whiff.
Yeah, let's go to Infernal Sovereign. It's 99 cents. Just squeaking in at the budget bombs. 4 black for 6/6. Whenever you play a land or a spell, draw a card and lose a life. This guy's pretty sick. That is a hefty text box. 6 mana means I want a double spell when I play this, or maybe have something else, or reanimate it to cheat it out so that I can draw cards right away. But if you untap with this, you're just going to town.
I think the important thing to note here is you also skip your draw step. So do remember that. But I actually put this in my Kalia deck recently, and I was like, oh, this is probably really good. Wrong. It's so good.
You're going to just run away with the game. They have to answer this card, or there's going to be too many other threats that are spawning from all the card advantage you got off this card.
Yeah, it's just land card. And it's like, oh, cheap thing card. And it's just, it changed so quickly.
I will happily skip my draw step. And on a budget, this might be one of the... I might look at this as one of the top reanimation spells, or one of the reanimation targets if I'm like a black graveyard deck.
I'd be so happy to reanimate this on a budget.
It's you know what? It's kind of like a budget Villas. Sort of like that. What's next?
Next is Curse of Bounty for 41 cents. 1 in a green, and you enchant a player. When they are attacked, you and the attacker untap all your non-land permanents. Beasley put this on me on a game recently, and it was so annoying. People are just like, yeah, that's fine. Basically, my creatures have Vigi and stuff, and it just gets so obnoxious after a little while.
Yeah, you put it on, you curse the person with the worst defenses. You can kind of tell based on their commander again. So you have a little bit extra information that this will be better than average if you had no information. So it says all the creatures that attack that person basically have vigilance, but if you have tap abilities, if you have mana rocks, if you have little dials and knobs to turn, you can just start doing that at instant speed before blocks, get things out of the way, activate your abilities, and it starts kind of translating to like tangible card advantage every time someone attacks. Like if I curse Mia, whenever someone attacks her, they get a little bit, but I promise my deck's built around this more than theirs.
And I think the important part is that it comes down so early, just 1 in a green, so you can just target someone immediately, and then they either have to spend the removal to do it, or just wait for it to get swept up in like a farewell or something, and that still takes a while usually.
Yeah, even if they try to remove it, they're probably going mana negative on it. It's only 2 mana. It's quite the investment for 41 cents. Knight of Autumn is 47 cents, and it's 1 green white for a 2/1 ETB. You choose 1. You gain 4. You put 2 +1/+1 counters on this, or you destroy an artifact or enchantment. Let me tell you right now, 85% of the time you're destroying an artifact or enchantment. But if my Rex Sage just had 2 more keywords, more abilities on it, I'm playing that all day over Rex Sage. And Rex Sage is a card we play all the time. So if you're green-white, play this in addition to or instead of Rex Sage.
Yeah, I think that this can easily go into your counters deck, you know, your Selesnya counters, but the added Rex Sage effect on it is so good.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really want the counters on it, but like a counters deck might have extra uses for the counters, so it might be more relevant than usual. I think if you're playing green-white and you're playing creatures and you're playing budget, this is a staple. Like I would just say auto-include at that point.
It's so versatile. I'd be happy to include this.
It does a lot. Pink Horror is a card you got to play with, 41 cents.
Oh my god, 3 blue and a red for a 4/4 that says every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you deal 2 to any target. However, when it dies, it splits into 2 2/2s, and each of them ping for 1 every time you cast an instant or sorcery. I have this in my Zephyr deck, and I was just going off left and right, just pinging things here and there, pinging people's faces, picking off little utility creatures. It was so much better than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, this was more annoying than like, Kessig Flame Breather or something that says deal 1 to each opponent when you cast those spells. It's messing with my board. It's putting me so far behind in the game that it doesn't matter if my life total's higher because she'll get to that eventually. It can go to face after they're done wiping off all your... really, I'd say anything that's a 4/4 or weaker is at risk of dying because it's so easy to chain cantrips, and it survives most of the board wipes, especially in budget. This thing's going to basically still be around. I can still ping the same creature for 1 twice, and that's 2 damage.
Yeah, it survived a board wipe split, and my friend went, oh no, this again? And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you can't get rid of it.
No, you're going to have to try harder than that, buddy. All right, what's next?
Next is Comet Storm for 61 cents. X red red with multi-kicker X. Choose a target, then choose another target for each time it was kicked. Deal X to all of the targets. I like this in budget, like a budget like removal spell, and you can just stack it for as many times as you have mana. I think this is like very good.
Yes, don't play this unless you can generate a lot of mana, but if you're rocking red-green or you're playing a lot of red rituals to do some like instant sorcery stuff, there's that side, and then there's also just the Skyshroud Claim, Elvish Mystic, I'm going to make a million mana, the easy way with lands and mana dorks. But you're going to cast this for like 20. You're trying to cast this for, X is 10 and finish people off. And in those decks, this is like a budget version of like Torment to Hailfire. I don't like Comet Storm off a budget. When you got to end games, this is one of the best direct to face ways to end the game.
Yeah, I've actually seen myself use it like a lot more than I thought I would, because you can just pour as much mana as you need into it, and the multi-kicker is so nice, especially with those instant and sorcery reductions.
Yeah, I think what I gave a Comet Storm an unfair rap because I'm so sick of seeing it reprinted. It's the Mythic and everything, it feels like, and most of the time it doesn't fit in whatever deck it's going into in like a precon. But I think on a budget, this is a good way to finish the game. So I'm sorry, Comet Storm, here's your redemption. Let's keep the budget train rolling. We got Make an Example, a card I have almost never gave a second glance, but I'm into it. It's 34 cents, 3 to black sorcery. Each opponent separates creatures they control into 2 piles. Then you choose one of them to be sacrificed. This is a nice little mind game, but also on its face, you get to choose the pile. So whatever the best creature an opponent has, you can ensure that it'll die because it'll be in one of the piles. It has to. And then you choose that pile and it'll die. So look at this, like 3 and a black, destroy the best creature of each opponent. Sorcery speed's a little sad, but I think the fact that this card isn't just that, it's going to snipe more creatures along with it when the piles get bigger, adds up to a playable card.
I have seen this do so much more work than I thought it would be. People tap out turn 4 or even turn 5 if they get this a little bit later in the game, and they just play these big threats, and you go, oh, nope, well, you only have one creature. I'll pick that creature to be sacrificed. And I love the fact that it gets around, like, hexproof and stuff.
Yeah, it does. It gets around a lot of that funky stuff. You just have to say, hey, I'm sorry, you're going to lose your best boy, but try to salvage what you can. It's not busted, but I think it's definitely a budget playable card. This is a 3-for-1, and it has much more potential than that.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Commander. We can't be going 1-for-1 on so many creatures and that sort of thing unless the permanent's super actually scary.
Exactly. That's why I love Curtain's Call, too.
Yeah, so with this, you can bare minimum get 3 creatures, 1 for each person. But if they have a lot more, you might be able to snipe like half of a board if it's like all tokens versus 1 big creature. Yeah, whatever you think is best.
You give them the tough choices because they've got to decide what to do. They can't necessarily make greedy piles because then you just go, all right, take out everything and you have like 1 creature left.
Yeah, they make the piles first and you go, okay, well, like I'll wait for you to do it.
Perfect. But they can make a mistake. Midnight Clock, 31 cents. That was quite the transition, wasn't it? 2 and a blue for an artifact. At the upkeep, I always say dong because that gets a time counter. And then when it has 12, you exile it and shuffle your hand, your graveyard into your library and draw 7 cards. If you're going to be a deck that can deploy cheap spells at a reasonable pace, you can empty your hand, and then this will say, draw 7 cards on it.
You can also pay 2 and a blue to put a clock or time counter on
it. It's a ding counter?
Yeah, ding. I say ding. He says, like, dong.
You got to alternate between ding and dong.
But in a 4-player game, it comes around a lot quicker than you'd think it would be to get that exile, shuffle your hand in graveyard, draw 7.
Right. So you untap once, it's got 4 counters, untap twice, it's 8, untap a third time, your turn starts, and then you just draw 7. So Manolith, below rate. At least it makes a color. It's not colorless. But 3-turn clock of, literally, drawing 7 cards, that's a huge upside on Manolith.
I actually really like this in my Spellslinger deck too, because you can keep up that 3 mana, you keep up the 2 blue just to scare people a little, and you probably have a counter spell in hand or some sort of reactionary spell, and so worst comes to worst, you fire it off with the mana you have, and if you don't, just put a counter on it, Yeah. I've definitely been at that 11th counter, someone tries to wipe the board of all artifacts, and I just put the 12th one on and get the trigger as it exiles, and then, oh, you thought you were going to get rid of it? No, you aren't.
Yeah, get that extra turns worth. Your card's a turn sooner. Midnight Clock can do some work. In an artifact deck, it even has more synergy. But as for synergy, I would say don't count out Moxfield.com. This card is 0 cents, and it actually takes the form of a website that you can log on to, create an account, follow the Nitpicking Nerds, and then realize, wow, the Nitpicking Nerds are awesome. I better look at all their decks. But once you do that, you realize, wait, I can make my own decks on here. This is super easy.
I love the fact on Moxfield that not only can you build decks, you can goldfish them too.
Yeah, you can playtest your own decks. We barely even talk about that. There's shortcuts, there's commands. You can track what turn your deck wins, how the first couple turns are going to go. And I actually use that to playtest my decks. I want to see how the first 6 turns are going to play, and that helps me make some of the final cuts.
Yeah, I've definitely used it and just finding, you can do things like tutor in them, and it makes it really easy. I think there's a search bar too if you have to tutor, so you don't have to scroll through everything. I'm pretty sure there's also infinite tokens in there, so you can draw on your tokens.
What can't Moxfield do? Whenever you try to count Moxfield out, they just add 6 new features before you're even done typing your hate comment because you love redacted website. Well, this ad isn't for you. Moxfield.com is for you.
And it's the best website to build your decks.
It's just the best website. I mean, what could be better? Maybe YouTube.com. Ignite the Future, 16 cents for 3 in a red sorcery. Exile the top 3 cards in your library. You can play them until the end of your next turn, and you can flash it back for 7 in a red, and it's the same deal. You exile 3 cards, but you can cast them all or play them all for free.
I mean, you're trying to, the 3 in a red, exile the top 3, that's good card advantage in red, but if you can't even do that and you have to discard it, it still gets that 7 in a red. You can still trigger that later.
Yeah, I look at this as an okay little pseudo divination. It's kind of like a deep analysis in that you can play it, get a land off of it. I like playing this on turn 5 when I can hit my land drop. Then I have maybe a second land and a spell. Great, I'll play them next turn. It's solid card advantage in red. Especially Boros decks, non-blue, are really going to like this. And then you can go big later in the game when you have nothing else to do.
I also love the fact that it is in red, so if someone's playing a Bajuka Bog or something, they're probably not going to hit your graveyard. There's probably a scarier deck running black or something that has reanimation targets or something. So I think this is actually pretty safe in graveyards.
Yeah, it's pretty safe. It's expensive, and you might not hit that well, but I like having the option. It's a good spell with a bonus attached to it that I can do later if I have nothing better to do.
Another great card is Invasion of Zendikar, 24 cents. It's one of the battles. It's a 3 and a green, and you can search for 2 basics when it enters the battlefield, and it has 3 defense counters on it. But if you can get those off of the battle, it flips into a 4/4 land with haste and vigilance, and it's also a creature. So I really like this in my Yarok deck. It's a $20 budget deck, and so immediately if Yarok's out, I get 4 basics. That's amazing, and that's a good ramp spell.
Yeah, so you actually sold me on this card. I completely counted it out, and I viewed it as it's just an explosive vegetation variant. But this is actually one of the best explosive vegetation variants, especially on a budget. You get 2 lands, so you're already on par. But now you just have a 3 defense card that you can throw a random flyer at, chip away at it, and then this card, it says, go get 3 lands. And there's not cards that do that. It's also an attacker and blocker. It's a little bit more susceptible, but that's triple ramp for 4 mana. And even Ranger's Path and Circuitous Route, they can't do that.
I also like the fact that this is not that threatening on the backside of the battle because
no one cares.
I have one that says the backside says if you tap 1 and sack it, you can copy a spell, and that's a little more threatening. But if I go, hey, can I hit this for 3? I just want a little extra mana. Everyone goes, yeah, sure, that's fine.
Whatever. Or you just take it. If your commander has 3 power, you got evasion. It's so trivial. People are just going to let this go, and then you just go, cool, that's a nice little ramp for me.
Yeah, I think the fact that it is 2 lands immediately and it is so easy to flip makes this a very good budget bomb.
Yes, and we have a very similar card, actually. It's kind of like a joint pairing with Invasion of Zendikar. It's another really good explosive vegetation variant that I think you should be playing more of that everyone forgot about. It's Terramorph, 7 cents, 3 and a green. Search for a basic land, put it into play, as it normally would be, which is untapped, and then it's got Rebound, so you cast the spell again on your upkeep. So the turn you get it, you still get a mana. You could maybe play another spell if it's later in the game. Next turn, you get another one untapped, and you basically just had a better version of explosive vegetation.
I am a sucker for rebound spells. There's a couple of my pet cards like Fevered Suspicion and Consuming Vapors that I also really love. But this is so good. 4 mana, and they come in untapped. I am willing to wait till the next turn to get that extra land. I'm happy to do that because they come in untapped. I'm happy.
Right. This is just better than all of the ones that say, put 2 lands into play tapped. It's the exact same thing functionally, except you get another spell on the stack, you get another cast of a thing, and you get them both untapped. So the first one comes in right away, and you can maybe double spell off that, which could be huge.
I think sometimes people might say that ramping in budget could be a little tougher because like ramping growth's like I think a couple dollars.
Some of those like Farseek or Nature's Lore is worth a lot.
Yeah, especially the Sky Shroud claims.
Three visits, yep.
But this just shows that it's not as tough as it might as it might seem.
Yeah, you can keep up. This is a 7-cent card, and it's pretty good. This next one is such a weird card. Haughty Jin, 99 cents, squeaking in. 1 blue for a star 4 flyer. The star is equal to the instant sorceries in your graveyard, and it says those spells cost 1 less to cast. This is a nice little package. I don't know why he's like making fun of your clothes in the flavor text. This guy's just a jerk.
Yeah, he's like, you have very rustic clothes.
Like, am I supposed to feel bad? I summoned you. What the heck?
But for real though, if you're obviously putting this in the Spellslinger deck with a lot of cantrips, and its power is gonna grow so quickly, especially if you're not using any of those like delve cards like Treasure Cruise or anything. I really like this. I've been able to chip in for like 7 damage like pretty easily the turn after it's come out, and the cost reduction is just really nice stapled onto the body for 1 blue.
Seriously, this is like the perfect Spellslinger card. I don't like playing things like Enigma Drake and Crackling Drake. They're just power. It doesn't feel very Spellslingery. It doesn't help me Spellsling, and then they could, if they get swept up by something, a 7/4 isn't always what I need to close the game. But this is a Goblin Electromancer that just has 7 power. Like, I would play this as a 1/4. But it's not a 1/4. It's going to be a giant threat that your opponents kind of have to respect, because if they leave no blockers up, smash them. But even if this thing just sits in untapped as an okay blocker, I'm taking that reduction and I'm taking it to the bank.
Yeah, 4 toughness is substantial, especially with the people who might try and ping in for a little bit here and there. And flying actually does matter, especially in those lower powered games.
Yeah, please cut your Enigma Drakes and your Crackling Drakes for Haughty Jin, and just have some thick skin when you play it, because he will make fun of your clothes.
Next is Rule of Law for 38 cents. For 2 and a white, it's an enchantment that says players can't cast more than 1 spell per turn. It's so impactful. And I can see why it's cheap, because I know a lot of people don't like the stacks effects.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really powerful, and if your game plan is late game, then this is a very good ad for that.
Yeah, this is not going to make you too many friends. You can rule 0 and make sure your playgroup's okay with this. But if you're trying to do what some people do and they say, I'm going to restrict myself on budget, but I want to build a really strong deck, this is like definitely an auto include. 38 cents, like you said. And what have we been talking about this entire video? We're like, oh, it'll help you double spell. You can cast 2 spells. That's like the best thing to do in Commander. I can't wait to cast another spell after I do. No, you don't. You fail. You get to just pass the turn after your 1 measly spell.
I also feel like this is one of those cards where there'll be one other player at the table, bare minimum, that's like, thank you, because they're also casting not a ton. And then there's that 1 or 2 players who's like, we need to kill this right now, like the Storm decks and that sort. So
any deck I play, I just cry myself to sleep if I can't remove this.
He loves the wheels. Not the wheels, the baubles and the...
I love to spin my wheels.
Yeah, there we go.
I love to cast Preordain. That's not a good card against Rule of Law. You don't want to do that.
We don't like baubles against Rule
No,
of Law.
leave your baubles at home. That's gonna be backbreaking. You can mess up a CDH table with this card. Like, it's a good card. Don't let the mana or let the price fool you. Time for some lands. Prairie Stream, 19 cents. Sunken Hollow, 25 cents. Smoldering Marsh, 29 cents. Citriclade, 22 cents. Canopy Vista, 40 cents.
Yeah, these are enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands.
Mm-hmm. And they're the only ones that exist. There's no enemy versions. These are the allied versions. They've been printed 1 trillion times, so they are dirt cheap, and they are a must. A must for any mana base that uses any of these colors.
A lot of people are asking me, like, oh, you're not playing, like, monocolored decks or even 2-color decks. And these are a big reason why I can stay in budget and play 3 or 4-colored decks. These help so much.
Yeah, a 3-colored mana base is totally doable. You have multiple 3 colors. You have a $20 3-color mana base. These help tie it together. I have a 4-color deck that's $20. These help tie it together. They're perfect. They're just anything you can ask for. I couldn't ask for more on a budget card.
Two or more basics isn't that tough too, because I've played these just turn 3 and they come in untapped, and it's like, okay, this is just better than a basic at this point.
It's just a dual land. Like, if you play Prairie Stream on turn 3 after an island and a plains, you played Tundra. Congratulations, and you're on a budget and you get to like flex your muscles.
Absolutely. These are very solid. And even if your deck had a little bit more budget, I'd still consider it if you're running enough basics to trigger it.
Yeah, and if you're looking for more budget bombs, you can find them because we do them every month. So, Mia, point to the next video.
Here, I think?
Yeah, and also, we got to give you a parting thought. Remember that rule of law is bad against preordained, and you shouldn't play rule of law.
Rule of law is bad if you want to make friends with Beezy.